Okay, you're good to go, Ted.
All right. So welcome everybody to the August 17th meeting of the Design Review Board. Let's see. First things first, this meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with the state of California executive orders regarding COVID-19. Live stream and Zoom is being utilized for this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after this meeting. We'll be conducting today's meeting in a virtual setting using Zoom. Members are participating from remote locations, practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by use of Zoom, as noted in the city's website and as noted on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak may do so during public comment or may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom to do so. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, offensive terms that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way to provide public comment. So there we are with that. Moving right along. We don't have an agenda, so I'm just going to wing it.
Oh,
You're so practiced, you know,
Yeah.
shouldn't be a problem.
Let's see. Let's see. Planning update on matters of general interest.
gotcha. So I'll do I have the agenda up here, and I can send it to you real quick, Ted. But we have roll call as the next.
Roll call, thank you.
So I'll start with board member Hanley.
Present.
And board member Level, Christine Level.
I'm here.
And board member Carrie Bush.
Here.
Vice Chair Lars Langberg.
Here.
And Chair Ted Buthen.
Here.
And Marshall Balfe did let me know that he will not be in attendance today, so he is absent from this meeting.
All right.
Next, we have approval of minutes for April 6th,
Oh boy,
2022,
we've got some ancient minutes here, people.
May 4th, 2022, and May 18th of 2022.
All right, so let's start with the April. So April was the review of, what was it, Litchfield?
Litchfield.
911 Litchfield, the house on Litchfield.
I had an excused absence. I had conflicts.
I was not there.
Okay, so,
I don't remember why.
yeah.
And I wasn't a board member yet, so I don't.
Uh-oh.
We're a man shy.
And Marshall. So do we need to punt this one to a future meeting?
Yep, that's correct.
All right, punt. How about 5-4? Let's see if we can do this one. Who was
I think we
present?
could do that.
Let's see.
That would-
On 5-4 was Ted, Lars, Christine, and Carrie. Look at that. We might be able to accomplish something today. Let's see here. This was a facade improvement for 154 North Main.
That was quite a few, if I remember.
I think there were, yeah, there were. That was a
Oh yeah,
big,
Sebastopol Avenue. Yeah, bunch of the facade improvements.
Yep.
And I didn't see any issues with this. Anybody have any comments on minutes?
No.
All right, then can I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
All right, we have a motion. How about a second?
I'll second.
There we go. Thank you, Christine. All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and call the question. All in favor of approval of the minutes, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I,
So I have 4 ayes with,
And I'll abstain.
with 1 abstention and 1 absence from Marshall.
Look at that. Now we've got the 5:18 minutes. This was Ted, Lars, Marshall, and Carrie. We got 3 out of 4, so I think we're good on that.
Mhm.
And this was 7950 Benegate Avenue, Huntley Square.
Huntley Square, yes.
That was-
Long one.
yeah, it was a long meeting. It was a good meeting, though. Nice project.
Mhm.
Any comments on the minutes?
No
I have
comments.
None.
none either. All right, then can I have a motion to approve this set?
Sure, I'll do it again. I
Sure.
move to approve said minutes.
Go, Lars. Motion, how about a second?
We got a second?
We got a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and call the question. All in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 3 out of 4 attendees.
Okay,
I'm assuming 2 abstentions.
2 abstentions and 1 absence.
And 1 absence. There we go.
Okay.
We got 2 out of 3 done.
Pretty good.
Hey, that's better than none.
The oldest is still straggling, but oh well.
That's fine. Okay, so next we have planning department updates of matters. General interest. There's been a few since the last time we've met. We recently, council adopted the local hazard mitigation plan for the city. So there's some grant funding and stuff like that that's available to the city to help with mitigations for hazardous things, whether that's flood or natural disasters or anything like that. The next item we have is the Habitat for Humanity project was approved by City Council last month, I think it was. I do have that tentatively scheduled for the September 7th Design Review Board meeting for the review, their final stages in the design review portion of it. This week on Monday was our first cutoff for the facade improvement program. We did get 2 applications for that program, and that meeting will also be on the 7th of September. So hopefully, if not, then we can potentially move that to the second meeting of the month. The other thing is I do have 2 extension requests from the last facade improvement program who were unable to get in their projects completed before the fiscal year. So there will be 2 extension requests for those. One was Tommy Realty signage, and the other one was the art store, I believe it was. The last thing is the Woodmark project got its conditional approval letter sent off last week. They will be starting their site demolition stuff, I believe this week or beginning of next week, with the anticipation of pulling their building permits at some point this year. And I think that's it as far as the major planning updates.
So John, the Woodmark project, is it basically moving ahead as we kind of last saw it?
So the Woodmark project is going through the SB 35 application process, which I'm not sure if you guys saw any of that project beforehand. It is a ministerial project where they're subject to whatever our design standards and code standards are. So there's no discretionary review.
But we saw it a couple times before that process. So I'm just curious if does it look the same basically, or is it radically different, or do you know?
I don't know what it looked like. Wasn't a part of that project. We had a outside consultant working on that along with Carrie. So I would that information is on our special projects page on the website. So if there's all of the details, architectural plans and civil plans and stuff like that are located on there. So
Okay, great.
I don't know what that project looked like beforehand because that was before I started with the city.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you.
Have a look.
I have a question about Woodmark, John.
Go ahead, Christine.
So the original program that they had was they were going to do all of the grading and make those tall walls and then just build out the front as a sort of a phase one.
Uh-huh.
Do you know if that's still their plan or what they're trying to do in terms of phasing it?
I know that there was some talking about how they were going to phase out the project. I don't know the specifics exactly of that, and it might be within that conditional approval letter, but I'm not too sure on what their overall goal was. I know that there was talks back and forth between building out the front half of it and phasing out that. But obviously the grading work that would need to be done on the backside of the project would make sense to do it, depending on our grading times of the year, what the weather's like, could limit them on how much grading work they could do during the winter.
All right. Any news on the hotel?
I have
There's
two
the-
other. I have two other just general planning questions for John.
Go for it.
So John, what is the schedule for ending these Zoom meetings and opening up City Hall?
That is based upon the direction from City Council. So once City Council adopts a method of doing the meetings, whether they're hybrid, in person, or still Zoom, the remaining boards and commissions will follow that outline. And I know the last time that it was brought up, sometime in the fall was when that was going to be addressed. So within the next few months, I would assume.
Were they
That's when they're
studying
start
doing a hybrid form?
Yeah, they were looking into the hybrid format and where they would offer that, and then also the financial kind of limitations on software and what's needed to have that operation to move forward.
Yeah. Okay.
So what would be the purpose of the hybrid meetings exactly?
So the hybrid meeting still allows members of the public, or if there's a board member or council member that still isn't comfortable or is exposed or whatever the case may be, can still participate in the meeting via Zoom and not have to be in attendance. So it provides them an option to either be in person where the meeting would be held in a public location, or they can kind of telecommunicate via Zoom. And that's also for members of the public as well.
Yeah, I think what I understood, Christine, was that the amount of public participation increased substantially due to Zoom, and so the council doesn't want to have that go away. Sounded to me like COVID's an issue, of course, but that was a big factor in trying to figure that piece out.
Correct.
So what about City Hall? Is City Hall going to open up again, or?
I hope so. That's going to be a decision for the city management to provide that that date on when City Hall will open up. That's unfortunately outside of my
Sounds good.
So,
Go ahead.
so I just wanted to mention that there was a the Caltrans Sustainable Planning Grant that I believe was approved by City Council to move ahead. An effort by a newly named group called Bloom to take on the mantle of past efforts of core project and such and try and improve our downtown. So I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, that passed City Council and the staff is moving ahead with that grant application.
Nice.
Great website too.
Nice website.
So what would this, Lars, I didn't quite understand. What would this grant be used for?
I don't know actually the specific goal of it, but it's basically like a core project, a group of people trying to make downtown a more walkable, pedestrian friendly place. And there's money with Caltrans to do that. So right now they're formulating what specifically they would be targeting with that.
Speaking of which, one more quick question. Speaking of core, what's happening with the hotels?
They're, from the last time that I heard, in October, they're supposed to be pulling their building permit.
Yeah, if you look out there now, there's no sculptures left and there are actually stakes in the ground.
Saw that.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, this could be it.
Mhm.
yeah, seems to be.
Exciting.
There's also one other item that might be involved with Ives Creek and Calder. Ives Park and Calder Creek. Is there any info on that?
Yeah, so the Calder Creek Naturalization Plan, what did go to Planning Commission last week and they recommended one of the designs to go to City Council for approval. And there's also they'll be working with a HUSP, I think is the group, to provide help with that project moving forward. And I believe as part of the local hazard mitigation plan, there's some funding that the city can get to increase that project, as well as, it would mitigate flooding and whatnot. Taking that creek out of the channel form that it's kind of in right now and naturalizing it a little bit more.
Yeah, speaking of Ives Park and Calder Creek, I heard that piece of property where Hipzaz and El Favorito Taqueria's for sale.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh,
we
that's
have
interesting.
had, Carrie and I did have a conversation with maybe somebody from the Burbank Housing Group, looking at potentially doing that site. I know there's a part of Calder Creek that runs underneath. There's two parcels there, so those two parcels would be essentially unbuildable. But as far as parking lot or parking requirements go, they could use those for parking. I think the other thing is there's also I think that site's also on the cleanup. There's a current water case going on with that one, so there's some potential constraints with that.
Yeah.
And then so back to housing. Also, the housing element update is in its draft review for public comment. So if you have any comments related to housing in the city of Sebastopol moving forward, on the planning department's website for the housing element update, there's a link to survey and where you can provide any comments. As last month, they were both, the draft report was given to Planning Commission and then City Council. So those meetings are also online.
so I'm going to go back for a second to that Taqueria site.
Yep.
So, John, I believe we made you aware and Carrie aware of big grant and process that we did with the city, the SDAT. And that site, if I'm not mistaken, was identified as a green belt to connect Ives Park to the Joe Rodota Trail. And it's it's an amazing opportunity to do that. So if the city is actively advocating for development of that project, that document should be on the table. It's a document that is adopted by the city as a planning guiding document, gathering dust on the shelf. If you're really advocating for the right kind of development there, you need to bring that forward.
Okay, what was the name of that again, Lars?
SDAT, SDAT. And I believe we sent it to you after we talked about it when we were doing our walking tour, I think is when it came up.
Okay.
So we were part of that. We brought a great group of AIA experts. We had this amazing 3-day workshop. They had incredible recommendations that have pretty much, been ignored. Even at the bigger level, when you see the traffic light down on 116 and Yano Road, there was a great plan for a roundabout there, and nobody thought of that when except better to put in the traffic light. So I think there's some really good stuff in that document. It was formally adopted by the city, so it should really be utilized.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you think about the connection between Main Street and not just Ives Park, but the art center, and the city owns that lot, underutilized parking.
Exactly. Yeah.
Throw all that in the mix and make a real connection to Main Street that punches all the way.
Right.
Tremendous. And then,
Yeah, and it's not to say like you couldn't do housing where the pizza place is, or a little row housing or something, and a lot of green space in front of it or something, but it should be considered. Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, it almost seems like the city should buy it and then engage a developer to write the criteria and engage the right developer to make it happen.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Go city.
Gonna happen.
Cool.
Lars, thanks for bringing that up, Lars. I appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. What's next? Now we have any comments from the general public on things not on our agenda?
I do not see any members of the public within our meeting, so I think we are good there.
All right, then let's roll into our regular agenda item.
Okay. So the first item is the continuation of the May 18th meeting to consider whether or not changing our meeting dates from once a month or continue with twice a month format. So I will open that up for discussion, and then as it is a regular agenda item, we would need to have a motion to move forward with that.
Okay. All right. Board members, how do we feel about this? We want to just kind of go around the room. Christine, what are your thoughts on once a month versus twice?
I think that once a month meeting is a good idea, but I think we should somehow have the option if something critical comes up or needs to be addressed that another meeting can be put in place.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good idea. And, or if if a critical issue comes up, or if, we end up continuing an item and the item has some urgency to it, we could drop a meeting in or something like that. I agree. Carrie, what are your thoughts?
I just say leave well enough alone. We've been following this format, at least I have, for close to 6 years, and I'm fine with it. So if it just leaves 2 dates available, it's on the calendar every first and third Wednesday of every month. That works for me. And if it can't, then we all are pretty transparent about what works and doesn't work for us. So I think it's been it's been a good rule of to follow. So let's just
I guess that's a good point. Like, what's the, John, you explain again why this is even being considered?
Yeah, so the last time that we brought this up, kind of going back to Christine's question as to when we go to potentially in person or a hybrid format, if we are going to be renting out some location and having the infrastructure there in place, if we're regularly canceling meetings or not having them, whether it's the first or the third Wednesday of the month, not depending on the amount of notice that we have beforehand, it could raise some potential issues. I'm not sure. I guess once we get a clear scope on pricing and if we have cancellations, if we're going to be charged for those types of things, and how that plays out, that is kind of the main reason why it was brought up. In my short time here, we have had quite a few cancellations, whether it's not having items or scheduling conflicts with vacations and things that come up with your professional jobs and stuff like that. So I just want to give everybody an option, if there's a certain day that works better, or if keeping it as is what we go with, and I'm fine with that as well.
Melissa, I see you just raised your hand.
Yeah, thanks. I'm curious if you have data on the cancellation rate over the last 12 months.
Yes.
Multiple cancellations. So John,
I mean, this is
go
this is
ahead,
actually,
sorry.
sorry, Lars. I was
No,
gonna say
go
this
ahead.
is my first actual participation in one of these, and I've been a board member for about 2.5 months now because of cancellations and vacations and things. So
Yeah, I'd say the bulk of the cancellations are really just there's nothing on the agenda. We often don't have cancellations because we don't have a quorum. I mean, it happens maybe a couple times a year, usually probably sometime. But most of the time they're canceled just because we don't have any issues to review. And I can go either way. I mean, if there is some sort of motivation in terms of organization behind the scenes that would be simplified. But I feel the same way as Carrie does. My personal schedule is flexible enough that if I get a cancellation of this meeting on Friday or Monday or whatever, it doesn't really upset me a whole lot. And if other people need a little bit more regimented schedule, I'm fine with accommodating that too. I don't know that I feel super strongly one way or the other.
Okay. So Melissa, to your question, we've had 8 cancellation meetings so far this year.
All right.
so that's almost 50%. I mean, if we're 8 months
Yep.
in, twice a month, I mean, that
Yep.
sort of tells us what we need to know then, Imho.
For this year.
Christine, I see your hand just went up.
I learned how to raise my hand.
Look at that.
Nicely done.
For years, no, years of Zoom. So, so I brought this one point up with John privately, but one of the things I think would be really helpful is just knowing more ahead of time what's coming up. Because traditionally we'll find out on Thursday. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've got so much stuff going on right now. And so to kind of have like this date sitting open possibly on Wednesday, and then I find out the Thursday before, it's a yes or a no. And I feel like some of these projects are being worked on in-house and they're coming down the pipeline. And if we could, know about that and know what meetings are really, essential that you need the board for, that would be super helpful as part of trying to schedule these meetings, I feel.
It might be, I agree, it might be a good idea in that front end part of our agenda where we have, planning items of interest. Maybe we have a, planning look ahead. It is coming down the pipe.
Okay,
Well,
I
it's
think
like
that's fair enough.
I had a discussion with John a couple weeks ago, and I was saying, I've got a lot of stuff coming up, and then he told me about what was going to happen on the September 7th meeting. And so I knew ahead of time to schedule everything else I'm doing around that. But if it's like, maybe we're going to have a meeting, maybe we're not going to have a meeting a month from now on Wednesday. I mean, I personally have other things I need to think about doing. And so I think if we could have a better schedule, know when stuff was coming up, then, you know, the twice a month I would be more amenable to. But right now, you know, it's just so hit and miss. It almost gets to the point where you don't take it seriously anymore.
Yeah.
And then we have the issue of the meeting location for the city, because we used to have the meetings in our standard room, but I guess that's not available anymore. So the city coming up, in order to have a meeting now, apparently has to schedule a location and rent that location out and set up the infrastructure for that location if we're going to have an actual live meeting. In that case, I would say it would be better than if the city's having to do all of that to set one day a month. This is our meeting, so they can set that up. Maybe the second meeting is just a Zoom meeting. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know, there's a lot of factors playing into this, the way I look at it.
Maybe we need a new city hall on the Taqueria site.
Hey, I think we need a new city hall at the library site.
At the light, man.
City Hall.
At the city
We've
hall
been
site.
talking about that new. We've been talking about that new city hall since at least 1987.
Oh, that's it's just around the corner then, you're saying.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
maybe we have to do we have to wait for like what's coming down from city council on the Zoom meetings and all that before maybe we need that information to help us decide?
I think we should
I
go
think that's
crazy
true.
and take a vote.
Just go crazy.
Let's be nuts, people. Let's do it. We've got a
No, but Marcy,
50%
make it so-
cancellation rate, so I kind of feel like 50% of the meetings is probably the right amount of meetings.
Yeah, you know, I tend to agree with that. I'm guessing historically, if you look back over the last 3 or 4 years, that's probably about what it's been. It's 50%. Yeah, and you know, I also think that if the need arises, we can always go back to the every 2 weeks too. So
It's clear there's a couple of factors in play. You know, there's a place which we still don't know about, like we've just discussed. So, you know, I'm comfortable either way or the other. Whatever works for the city and my fellow board members is fine with me, quite frankly. With twice a month versus once a month, that's fine or not. So if we had to vote on it, I'm comfortable either way or the other.
me too. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll leave it.
and we can always bring it back up and you know, change it going forward as well. So that's always an option if, you know, if we continue as is and then assess it again, you know, when we get a actual location and if we are doing hybrid format meetings and what that turns into, and then we look at it again, that's, you know, that's always an option as well.
Yeah, because I do also want to be conscious of kind of the customer service aspect of this, that, you know, someone walks in, if our one meeting is on the third Wednesday of the month and someone walks in on the last Tuesday of a month and has to wait, you know, almost a month to get on our agenda too, there is that aspect of it. But I think we have some responsibility to be responsive to our customers, essentially, community members.
Right. And then from our perspective, if we have to miss a meeting for some reason, then you know, we don't get to go to a meeting for 2 months.
Yeah.
Right.
There's going to be more likelihood, I bet, that we lack a quorum even because of that.
Yeah, if you lack a quorum, now you got a 2-month gap. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you make a really good point, and I'm like kind of convinced to move my interpretation back to the 2 times a month, because really our purpose I hate to call the public our customers. That sounds a little creepy to me, but I think that our purpose here is to serve the public.
Right.
That's our purpose. So, you know, we should be available to the public. And I think just the thing that I would add that would be helpful is if planning could just go ahead and reveal anything that they even think is coming up or something so that we can plan ahead a little bit more about what's coming down the pipeline and it's not a last minute surprise. But I think, you know, your point I take really well, Ted. We do need to be available to the public.
Mhm.
And
Well,
that's our purpose.
Yeah, and to your point of thinking ahead, Christine, like, wouldn't that also then factor into whether we have to reserve or cancel a place to have a meeting, right? If we know a week ahead, that place should be flexible enough to let us not have a meeting, right?
Well, additionally, I think a lot of this stuff that's coming down on the pipeline, it's coming down the pipeline for a while. It doesn't, the bigger projects don't just show
Yeah.
up.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, if somebody comes in with a sign, I suppose John could turn that around really quickly if it had to come in front of the board. But, you know, I think, you know, we all have email. John, does it have to be a meeting for you to let us know what's coming down the pipeline? Or can you just email us, hey, this came in, looks like we're going to now have, like, this customer came in with a sign. Looks like, you know, next meeting where this is going to be important. And just send it out when you have the information. Is that appropriate?
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yeah, as long as we're not discussing any items or, you know, making any conclusions or, you know, approval or denial or whatever on the project, as long as it's purely information based and it's informative in that way, then I don't see an issue with, you know, letting you guys know beforehand. I mean, I know it's still a public meeting, but, you know, letting you know that the Habitat project is on its way.
Yeah, see, that kind of stuff is really helpful. And, you know, I don't know if maybe I'm idealizing the situation too much, but you could say, hey, you know, it looks like that second Wednesday in September, there's really nothing coming down the line. So we can think about it, you know, or you could say, hey, we actually have this other project coming in and, you know, handle it that way.
Yeah, I think that's.
But I think I'm going to move strongly back to 2 times a month.
Okay.
I'm going to move strongly back to that because I really strongly believe we need to be available to the public.
Okay.
Excellent. All right. Christine, you want to make that into a motion?
Yes. I am going to, I propose that we just continue to meet 2 times a month with the stipulation that John is also free to give us more of notification about what's coming down the pipeline, even if it won't be available for another month or 2 months for the board. At least we know it's coming.
I like that.
I don't know if that's a motion, but there you have it.
There we have it. All right, so we have a motion. How about a second?
Sure, I'll second.
All right, got a second from Carrie. Any further?
And- Yeah, so since we do have, I believe, a member of the public here, we should open it up for public.
Yes, indeed. Sorry about that. Anybody from the public who would like to comment on our agenda item discussing frequency of design review meetings? Seeing no hands flying up.
I don't either.
All right. Then we'll close the public comment portion of this. All right, we have back to our motion, and a second is on the table. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's call the question. All in favor of our motion, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
There, I raised my hand.
Nicely done.
All right, so we have 4 ayes. Melissa, do you have a question or are you raising your hand?
You
I'm
said-
just raising my hand
Okay.
in affirmation.
Okay, thank
The,
you.
the modern way.
Perfect.
Well done.
Nice. All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. What else,
So-
John?
That motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention. And the next agenda item is tours of past projects. So this is a follow-up to the past projects tour that the design review staff took in November of 2021. The proposal is to visit the second half of previous projects. And if there are any additional project that the design review board should like to see, to recommend those to staff. The projects that are in the recommendation are the wood floor, the fern bar, hand line, exchange bank, the newly developed Barlow townhomes, and any other projects that you may see fit.
That sounds good. The other project I might throw on the list is where the Flavors restaurant is.
We looked at that last time.
Oh, you?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
I
think
think you,
were last.
yeah, you were in San Jose, I think.
Good walk.
it was a good walk.
Good talk too, right there.
Okay, so the other one that I'd like to add on there is the giant sign at the Barlow.
Giant Barlow sign.
Giant Barlow sign.
Sounds good.
Is that the one that overhangs McKinley Street there, or the one face on
That's it's like the
the monument
when you
sign?
go, you turn into where Community Market is. There's 2 giant signs
Gotcha.
that have changed since we approved them, but size is the key on that. You can put anything you want inside that sign.
Okay.
That's the way it got approved.
Sounds good. Anybody else have anything else to add to the list?
So is this,
I have one quick question about the list.
Uh-huh.
So you mentioned that the Barlow townhomes, are those the original Dan Davis
Correct.
projects? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one where he craftily told us that this was going to be his family project and he was going
Yes.
to rent it out. It was a heritage project and
I don't know if we could comment on that versus what the design was proposed and what the design was built, right?
Yeah, it would be towards the design rather than.
no, I know.
Okay.
I'm just making a comment about
Uh-huh.
that one.
The political nature of the design review board.
Yeah.
Well, so I have a question. Last time we did a walking tour, so this is a little bit
Mhm.
further. So how about if we get on the bicycles and do a biking tour?
Okay,
Who
So
has a
comfortable with
bike
that.
for me?
I'm up for that.
Are you providing me with a bike?
We could probably wrestle you up a bike somehow.
Might need to.
We could go to the bike shop. It's a public service. Maybe they'll rent us a couple bikes
There you go.
at a low
I have a
cost.
stationary bike in my gym I use every day, but I don't think that's helping.
Won't get you very far, I don't think.
We'll put that in a little tray.
We could have the Zoom. We'll do a Zoom
Oh, you know what I can
location
do?
for
I'll
you.
bring one of my horses. I'll put the bike on a crate, on a cart, and then I'll have my horse take me.
There you go.
That'll be great.
Like a
Yes.
chariot.
That'd be
That'll be a
freaking awesome.
spectacle.
That
And then
will,
we'll call it a parade.
They'll call it a parade.
So it looks like Exchange Bank is maybe the furthest, furthest.
Yeah. I guess that would be the only one. Or if you go hand line to Exchange Bank, that's a pretty long walk.
And these the ones that are on here, we don't have to do this time. If you want to, if it makes sense to, we've got the wood floor, fern bar, and townhomes and the Barlow sign all kind of relatively close in nature. If it makes sense to do those for this one, and then we can always do these again. So
Great.
it's really up to the board to provide staff with where you want to go.
I love the idea of a bicycle tour. And for what it's worth, I have 2 extra bikes that people can borrow if
Yep,
necessary.
see, there we go. Nice, nice.
Oh,
And I have a cargo bike, so beer and wine in the front of mine for the road.
okay.
I
I
was
didn't hear
just
that,
gonna
did
say.
I?
I'm gonna totally rile things up here on the design review board.
All right.
I was gonna say we could do it during
We
Peachtown,
need
you
a
know,
bike, we
Fern
need a
Bar.
bike for a shorty, remember?
What was that?
We need a bike for a shorty.
Shorty.
So John, just to your comment real quick, I think that made a lot of sense because we had a fairly good agenda last go round. I don't think we got to nearly most of it. And it was a great conversation and a good tour. We were able to walk the entire tour. And I think it was a good, probably 3 hours, maybe. It was a really great idea and it was a real valuable tool, as a member, and do it again. So however the board feels, this may take place or what comes first or what goes last is fine, also fine with me.
Okay. And like I said, these are just recommendations. We don't have to completely set ourselves to the ones that are on that list. If, like I said, if it makes sense to do those that are kind of within the Barlow district, because the majority of them on that list are. And like you said, Carrie, we only got to a couple last time and it was a couple hours. So, I appreciate that in that, the level of detail that we took on each project wasn't just a 5-minute walk by, hey, this doesn't look like what they were approved before. We went into the design, what was talked about, landscape stuff. I mean, the project in its entirety rather than, what the facade looks like and just moving on. So,
So
Christine?
I think, all joking aside, I think it makes sense to have a Barlow-centric tour as one tour. And we've got the Exchange Bank. I don't know if we're going to see, we should be having some projects coming up there. We approved some projects down in the Exchange Bank area, like the new Starbucks. Is that going to happen?
Yeah.
There's a couple of things coming up, and there was an interesting project, and I think this only goes back to me and Ted. But on Norley, there was a 3-lot subdivision. Were you here then, Carrie?
I was, yeah, that was great.
Behind Fiesta
Well,
Market.
because I think it's interesting to discuss. I don't know how many more lots or subdivisions we have like this in Sebastopol, but to look at these and discuss how they're handled. Because that was very contentious. I believe the last one, as I recall, went to council. The last house on that lot, wasn't that correct?
It might have, yeah.
Anyway, so I think that might be an interesting one to tour, and that's over by the Exchange Bank, and maybe this Starbucks one will happen. I guess the one we approved at the gas place is now a campground. I guess I'm going to call it a camper campground. So I guess that one's not coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we could end up with sort of another tour in that zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point. Mhm.
And I think the one on Healdsburg and Murphy is kind of moving forward as well. So, I know we had that on the list.
We looked at that last
We
time.
looked at that one, but it was still kind of the background of, the previous owner passing away and all of that kind of stuff has moved forward and that project's going forward finally. So
Nice, that's great.
so that could be, by the time we get to that kind of northern end of town, that project might be a little bit further along and we can kind of really assess it rather than just the frame that was really there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That sounds good. So do the kind of downtown Barlow focused. And then,
Okay, so on that, as that's an agenda item as well, we should open it for public comment and then
anybody from the public have any comments on our discussion about a design review tour? Seeing no hand going up from our member of the public that's with us. Let's go ahead and close the public comment. All right, so then we need a motion. Do we also need to talk about dates?
yes,
We kicked around a couple dates. One was September 21st or October 5th. My preference is the 21st. Does that work for everybody?
The last Peace Town Festival's September 7th. I was just checking that out. So I thought maybe that would be a conflict with the 21st, but again, the last Peace Town is the 7th.
Okay.
That would be quite difficult for us.
So we won't be eating.
Oh, sorry.
and the 7th, I do have the Habitat
Gotcha.
for that meeting, so
Okay.
Habitat and the facade improvement program.
All right. Let's go to the 21st.
Okay.
All right.
So we're looking at September 21st.
Does that work for you, Christine?
Yes, it's September 21st.
Okay, that date works for me, so.
Look at that. Now you know what's coming down the pipe.
Good
Yeah.
for me too.
I'm putting it in my calendar right now.
Excellent.
Can I make a motion then to throw that out there?
Please do.
We're gonna have a walking tour at the Barlow on September 21st, 2022.
Sounds good. We have a motion. How about a second?
I can second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, let's call the question. All in favor of our tour on the 21st? Please.
Oh,
raise your
what?
hand.
One second. Did you want to have the time as the regular agenda, 4 p.m. time?
Oh.
What did we do before, John?
Let me go back to the agenda.
Almost said 4 o'clock too.
We started that one at 2:30.
2:30.
Oh,
Wow. Okay. Wow, that did go on a while then. Works for me.
That works.
That's fine.
Melissa and Christine?
Is it gonna still be light? Yeah, it will still be light at 6 o'clock. Gives us 2 hours. Is that enough time?
If we start at 2:30, we have plenty of time.
Oh, I thought you
I-
said 4. Okay. 2:30?
I can start early. That's fine.
2:30 work for you, Christine?
Yes, I can do that.
Let's do it. All right. So we have an amended motion for the 21st at 2:30. Is that acceptable? Thumbs up?
And we meet where? Where will we meet?
The Barlow sign.
I would meet, yeah, the Barlow sign is probably the
Okay.
easiest
Perfect.
place to find right off the bat.
Adjacent to Community Market.
Perfect.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's call the question. All in favor of meeting on the 21st at 2:30 in front of the Barlow sign? I'm using my
Hi.
All right.
raise. There we go. Using the tools.
We have 5
That's
eyes
the only
with
tool I'm
one
using
session.
on this.
All right. So we got that done. Look at us getting stuff done.
Oh my.
John, what else have we got?
Next, we have subcommittee updates.
Subcommittee.
Oh, the community sculpture garden opened to great fanfare. Go check it out. That's
Will
the update from the Public Art Committee, and the commissioned art piece on the library wall had its opening as well. So the Public Art Committee is rocking and rolling.
Are. Yeah, they are.
All right.
Love all that stuff.
Yeah,
One on the wall of the library is really cool.
isn't that cool?
It's a nice piece.
Yeah. That's all I got.
It makes walking around town fun. It's awesome.
Sounds good. John, we got anything else on our agenda?
So the other item that I have is the city is in contract with a group that will be developing our objective design standards and SB9 regulations. So that will be kicking off here pretty soon, and we'll be going to the design review guidelines subcommittee, which Lars and Christine are members of. So and then also Commissioner Fritz and Mayor Slater are also within that committee. So that will help us with any further SB 35 projects that come in, as well as SB 9 urban lot split applications that may come in. We have gotten some inquiries about it. So with those SB 9 regulations and the objective design standards, along with our standard conditions of approval that we went through, those will help us on our ministerial project. So
Interesting to see what they come up with. Christine, hands up.
My hand is up. So John, again, is any heads up at ASAP on any action on any of this stuff, I would really appreciate.
no problem.
But thanks.
Sounds good. Anything else, John? What's next?
I think that's it. The last thing we have is the adjournment. Unless anybody else has any items.
Anybody want to introduce anything new?
Yeah, I have one more quick question.
Or-
Hand is up.
Hand is up.
So what is the schedule for redoing Bodega Avenue going out of town? Is there a schedule for that now, or is that?
As far as the roadway improvements?
Repaving and, yeah, because it's
Yeah,
in bad condition, let's put it that way.
yeah. So that portion of it's going through our engineering department. I believe there are a couple phases to that project. I don't remember which half of Bodega Avenue is where those lines are, but the engineering department would have additional information on that. There's a quick strike project, I believe, which does the roadways and then crosswalks. And then there's an overall, I think, capital improvement program that's also happening.
Yeah, my understanding was there's a plan to repave it, or am I wrong about that?
It's possible. I know that the only thing that I'm aware of is the sidewalk improvements on a couple parts of Bodega there. One of them in front of Hunting Square. And then also the Woodmark project, I believe, has some improvements that will be done in relation to their project moving forward as well. So
Okay.
Unfortunately, the transportation pavements kind of stuff is usually engineering's forte, so I don't have a whole lot of information.
Okay, appreciate it.
So, yep.
Else? Anybody? Seeing nothing, I think we are done. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you the next meeting.
Nice to see everyone again.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Bye all.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Bye,
Yep.
guys.
Thank you.